In the news tonight, the Prime Minister and education officials share details of the proposal to replace the Barbados secondary school's entrance examination. Barbados could be host to a major regional development conference next year. The Minister of People Empowerment shares the plan. Concerned that people with disabilities still not included as they should be. And in sports, Matthews stars with a bat, but Windies women lost the series decider to Australia.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom. Thank you so much for tuning in. In our top story tonight, the much talked about abolition of the 11+ examination is now an official proposal being made by the Ministry of Education. Today, the plan was outlined by Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley and education officials at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Centre. Wendy Burke joins us now with those details. Wendy?
Lisa, Prime Minister Motley believes that Barbados' education system can, in her words, go for gold once everyone is on board with the transformation proposals. She says properties have already been earmarked for the construction of 2 new schools which will cater to special needs.
Recognizing that the partnerships will come with entities outside of Barbados, as we have already established with XQ Foundation, who have agreed to build the 2 new secondary schools for us once the government provides the land, as we have already started to do, purchasing the site of the old Ursuline Convent and purchasing the site at Chelston in order to build a school that is focused also on preparing students in the specialist areas for the blue-green economy, should that be the wish of Barbadians.
Ms. Motley reminded that it's not just reform for reform's sake, but a movement away from the old model of education.
This is about decolonizing education. Don't let us forget that. This is a country that in 1661 in the Parliament passed the legislation that said that people that look like you and me were not to be treated as humans. And as much as we have removed the legislative inequity, there are still mental barriers that have now to be deconstructed.
The Prime Minister says training has begun for those in the system, but the public must now decide on the transformation, noting Barbados can reach the highest level.
What now remains is for the Barbadian public to decide whether we want to go for gold or whether we want to settle for less. We believe that the consultations of the last 18 months can allow us to go for gold. And we believe that the bondage, as you heard from the Minister of Education, that has attached itself to a class system and to an exclusionary system cannot be part of our future.
Providing more details about the plan is Chief Education Officer Dr. Ramona Archer-Bradshaw.
This new system that we are proposing will have feeder schools. And these feeder schools will be primary schools where students from these primary schools will go into a secondary catchment school. If you want to hear more about that, consultations. We're going to have, they're proposing 2 new schools that will lower the teacher-student ratio. We're also looking at ensuring that our teachers can use individualized education plans for those children who are challenged or who need more support, and for those who are exceedingly gifted. We will continue at the secondary level with the technical and vocational skills and reinforcing that. We're also looking at additional forms of certification.
She also says they want to ensure the children have options when it comes to certification.
We want to make sure that at the end of the day, they have a piece of paper that says, I am competent in numeracy, literacy, a foreign language. I'm a good person, so I did some service learning. I volunteered somewhere. I'm into my health and fitness, so I did some extracurricular activities. So we're proposing something called the Barbados National Secondary Diploma. So that if a child does not leave with the CXCs, that at least they have this diploma that can show that they are competent in certain areas.
Director of Education Reform, Dr. Ida Mae Denny, adds that the proposals call for the introduction of specialist teachers as well.
Our teachers admitted, or a lot of our primary teachers admitted, that they worked hard, they were good teachers, but some of them were not specialists in maths and English, and therefore they felt that they were shortchanging the children by being generalists. And they made a plea that we look at introducing some specialist positions at the primary level so that we could help to bolster the development of the children in those early stages.
Along with the specialist teachers, there will be the creation of the master teacher post. This will allow those who desire to earn more money without having to be promoted to deputy principal or principal.
We believe that we must facilitate the desire of those teachers because some of them are cut out to be excellent teachers but not good leaders. So therefore, we feel that the introduction of the master teacher track will facilitate the desire of such teachers and will allow us to help some of those schools that are performing poorly.
There will be 13 public consultations between now and November to give the public the opportunity to provide feedback on what is being proposed. Back to you, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Well, Barbados is looking to host the 6th session of the Regional Conference of Social Development and 16th Ministerial Forum for Development in Latin America and the Caribbean come 2024. Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs Kirk Humphrey expressed the island's willingness to be the venue during his address before the 5th session in Costa Rica.
Hopefully, if UNDP and CEPAL agrees, the conference next year in Barbados. And if we can get the support of UNDP, I would wish to invite all of y'all to attend if we are fortunate enough to host it. And let us begin to build these relationships that allow us to reflect more purposefully on our mandate and address the concerns more seriously of the people that we were appointed to address their concerns and hopefully be able to make meaningful change as it relates both to the mandate and the structural framework within which we operate to achieve that mandate.
Minister Humphrey sees a role for the non-governmental sector across Latin America and the Caribbean, along with universities, in assisting the ministries of social care post-COVID.
To be able to have something that can survive outside of the political context, so that when we have information, it is scientific. When we set indicators, they're scientific, and we use that to drive our policy so that it is not tainted by politics. We are very much aware that there is almost a latent distrust these days between anybody who's in the political class and the citizens that they represent. So there's a need to have some of that data driven outside of the political process.
Now, while in Costa Rica, Minister Humphrey held a bilateral meeting with the Executive Director of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, or ECLAC, Jose Salazar Zirinax. The meeting focused on several areas of mutual interest, including the reconstruction of the international development financial architecture and garnering international support for the Barbados-led Bridgetown Initiative. Well, coming up, more concern about the impact of the hot weather on farmers. Despite last week's heavy rains, there's heightening concern about the impact of the unusually hot weather on farmers. Richard Mears, manager at Edgecombe Plantation in St. Philip, says he expects to lose some of what he planted.
The earth is so hot that my concern is that the heat will kill some of the plants that I planted already. I started back cutting cane plants yesterday because over the last 3 days I had 2.5 inches of rain. So I started back, but it is a concern to small farmers and other smaller plantations who rely on rain to do a lot of their work. A lot of my non-sugar could be done by irrigation from my well. So I will not be under as much stress as the farmers who do not have access to well water.
Barbados Workers Union General Secretary Tony Moore is calling out some hoteliers for not honoring long-standing negotiated union agreements that benefit hotel workers. Speaking on the sidelines of the BWU Founders Day celebration yesterday, she said workers in the tourism sector deserve better.
So those committees are not being respected. In some instances where the properties are supposed to be sending information to the union so that we are able to verify how things are being allocated, that is not being done. There are some properties who've opted into arrangements where they do not pay service charge, but they pay a premium or are to pay a premium on the basic wage. And reports coming to us is that that is not being done.
She added that workers are not fully benefiting from the service charge, despite it being included in most bills across hotels and restaurants. According to her, there is an issue with the points committees that should be in place to calculate the service charge and the fair allocation to staff. There's concern people with disabilities continue to be invisible to many in society. It has come from Managing Director at CIBC First Caribbean International Bank, Donna Wellington. She was addressing a workshop to spread awareness and support for deaf people. Trevor Thorpe has more.
The workshop examined the barriers faced by the deaf and hearing impaired while finding ways to correct and democratize society going forward. The top bank official told the participants much is lost as a result of persons with disabilities either being left out or forgotten.
Their ideas, skills, knowledge, abilities, and unique ways of seeing, navigating, and contributing to society are lost to so many who simply won't see past their disabilities. Workshops like this one and other activities and efforts to fully educate, sensitize, and empower us to engage with persons with disabilities on an equal level are vital steps in the journey towards the full integration of persons with disabilities in our communities.
The bank official said technology should go a long way in preparing elements of society to better understand disadvantaged persons, and the workshop is a key milestone in the journey of inclusion, focusing on deaf and hearing impaired persons.
We know that advances in technology have allowed us to develop a number of digital products and services as our mobile banking app, which has enhanced the way that hearing impaired and other persons with disabilities do banking with us.
Coordinator and workshop instructor Bonnie Leons of Signature Interpretations said the workshop is bearing fruit and gave some background on the initiative.
It is not always that people don't care. It's not always a bad attitude, but they don't understand, or it never registers within them. So this is why we had this workshop was last year, and so much came about as a result. So much positives came about as a result last year, and we are hoping that this year you see even more results. You see that deaf people are able to go into spaces and function.
Participants came from across the public and private sector work spectrum for the one-day hands-on exercise in sign language. Trevor Thorpe, CBC News.
A UWI student is now able to attend classes free of some financial burden. Andre Greenidge received a generous donation from the English district of the Freemasons in Barbados. The gesture is a means of the Valley Council Lodge number 229, fulfilling one of the tenets of Freemasonry, charity. Greenidge is pursuing a degree in international relations, and this is the second year the lodge has contributed to a UWI student. District Grand Prefect of the Allied District of the South and East Caribbean, Richard Mears, says charity and assistance go beyond education.
The district step up in a big way every year where we do Barbados Art and Stroke breast screening, cancer support, Barbados Cancer Society, Down syndrome, dyslexia. We step up to the plate and do a lot of charity work, district-wise. But Valley Council main goal is to continue with this student scholarship for a student at UE annually.
Mr. Greenidge is thankful for the assistance and outlines his plans.
Hopefully, ideally, I would love to work in an international organization. Again, where policy is the main focus, that I can help build and support other countries as well.
The Business Report, brought to you with the compliments of Republic Bank. We're the one for you.
Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, Ryan Strawn, has disputed reports in another section of the media regarding government's efforts to secure a $100 million Inter-American Development Bank loan. He says it is not to revamp the national insurance scheme, as has been reported.
So under the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan, 2018 and 2022, there are a set of reforms that the government committed to undertaking. We have already completed part of the NAS reform by being able to put it into to change the corporate structure, as well as to address some of the pension matters that related to the pension reform specifically. Now, as part of government's program in relation to policy-based loans, what we've done over the last 5 years is to access policy-based loans on the basis of what the government has done in order to support the government's budget process.
And Minister Strawn clarified the purpose of the loan.
These monies are not for the national insurance. They are for government's ongoing reform agenda as well as budget support to help us to be able to continue to implement the reforms as articulated. Bear in mind that the national insurance scheme is a separate fund completely from government. Completely. So therefore, there's nothing in the budget of government that has a material impact on the national insurance and vice versa.
The cooperative movement is bearing fruit. The disclosure was made by Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Business Development, Sandra Husbands, at a media briefing at her office today. She said the cooperatives model is extremely important to the advancement of business in Barbados.
We've had a growth in the number of cooperatives, and that is a very, very positive sign. What we're doing now is strengthening their capacity to function by making sure that they're steered towards the types of technical assistance that is needed to help them to grow. And that's the work that we're doing at this point.
The cooperative movement will be an important plank in government's strategy to move business forward, and the minister said the foundation work is progressing well.
You have, for example, the Pig Farmers Co-op, and they've been able to deal with the production of pork and to be able to supply, whether it would be the hotels or restaurants or supermarkets. You've had a number that are into farming, and they have been doing vegetable production, egg production, etc. We have some now that are strong into making natural soaps and so on, and these are the ones that we want to work on to be able to develop labels that we can push those into the tourism industry and that we can push them into the overseas markets because the quality is excellent.
Let's head back over to the sports studio now. Anne-Marie, what's first out of that bag?
I'm going to pull out netball first, Lisa, as the Barbados Senior Women's Netball team continue their perfect record with a 4th straight victory at the ECCB International Netball Series in Antigua. Playing last night, the Bajan Gems led at all quarters, 29-10, 14-19, before closing out the win at 54-25. In the circle, goal shooter Faye Agar netted 21 of 26 attempts, sharing that bid with Jada Smith, who had 14 goals from 19 attempts. In the goal attack position, Latonia Blackman knocked down 19 of her 21 attempts. The Bajan Gems this evening defeated St. Kitts and Nevis 74-34. We will look at that match tomorrow night. Well, national drafts player Jack Francis is contesting that he was robbed of the Scottish drafts title won by fellow Barbadian Ronald Suki King. King and Francis ended the tournament both on 34 points, but King was given the title based on the honor point system. Jack is refuting the rule, especially since he would have beaten King when the two met head-to-head. An emotional Francis told CBC Sports the title is rightfully his.
Several international drafts experts, after analyzing the situation, are determining that that honor point system rule is flawed and that could not have been valued in terms of the use to determine the outcome of the winner of this match between Jack and Suki, because the fact that Jack beat Suki automatically suggested that Jack was the superior performer. So that is very, very, very controversial. I am pretty disappointed at the outcome of this. That is Jack's crown, man. That is my crown. I want my crown.
Jack has also issued a challenge to Suki to face him one-on-one before the end of the year to finally settle the score on who is the best drafts player in the world.
I am thirsty for Suki. I want a local matchup with this man. I want this man like a dog that want a bone to eat and suck in my mouth, man. I want the man. I thirsty for this man. He is not a confident champion. He is not confident that he can beat me one-on-one.
Legendary track and field coach and co-founder of the MVP Athletics Club in Jamaica, Paul Francis, has hailed Barbadian double world championship bronze medalist Shade Williams as a world-class athlete. Francis was speaking on the sidelines of a special ceremony at the Granny Adams International Airport, where Williams was recognized by government with the unveiling of 2 portraits and a billboard in her honor, along with some monetary support. Francis says Williams has the potential to become an Olympic champion in the future.
She's extremely disciplined, and at the end of the day, she is a coach's dream, and the more she recognizes that what she's doing works, is the more she resists her natural inclinations to stop and give up and keep going for that extra one. And I can tell you as a fact that even Shade Williams in 2022 season versus Shade Williams in 2023 season were 2 different persons, and I figure that it will make even a big difference coming for Paris 2024 because of her discipline and having the winning attitude which is required for her to go all the way to the top.
Back to some cricket news. Play in the 3rd round of matches in the Barbados Cricket Association's Legends Cup was abandoned today due to heavy showers at both grounds. Before the rains came at Wanderers, the Charles Griffith Titans won the toss and elected to bat first against the Garfield Sobers Giants. The Titans got up to 167 for 4 after 33 overs. Giovante De Pizza hit an unbeaten half-century of 53 off 54 deliveries, assisted by opener Seth Agard, who scored 39. Left-arm spinner Joshua Bishop was the pick of the bowlers with figures of 3 for 21 from 10 overs. Meantime, over at Foursquare Oval, sent into bat first, Sagana Greenwich Trailblazers reached 110 for 2 from 28 overs, playing against the Wesley Hall Chiefs. Skipper Craig Bradford was unbeaten on 60 off 95 balls, while Demetrius Richards made 21. Shem Holder and Matthew Jones both grabbed a wicket each for the Chiefs.
And that's our news. Thank you so much for tuning in. Good night.